Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Step One Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
And for this Feminist Movie Friday, if you're happening to listen on a Friday, hey, good job. If not, no matter. It's still Feminist Movie Day, whatever day you want to slip in there. We are throwing it back, all the way back to 1980, y'all. Yes. For a cult classic, which is now what it is deemed, one with some interesting mixed reviews, but a movie that has made its mark. So much so that it spawned TV shows, musicals, and even a possible remake currently in the works, supposedly. I don't know. There's even a documentary of where we are now. Spoiler alert, we're not much better off. Actually, we're worse. We are talking about the classic 9 to 5. So just an FYI, from the day I suggested this movie to the day I wrote this damn outline, changes have occurred. And sadness has ensued. And the way we are talking about this movie has swiftly changed. So if something seems kind of like we're coming backtracking and be like, well, it's actually this now, it's because in the middle of literally 2 weeks, a movie from the 1980s has already changed like perspectives just within these 2 weeks in 2025. Deep breath in and out. But yes, so with everything that's happening, it's the fact that we are going backwards. We thought it would be a good time to revisit a classic. One of the many things this movie did, it catapulted the beginning of Dolly Parton's acting career. It was her first debut. And even if people did not like this movie, people said it was unrealistic. Of course it's unrealistic. Sorry. People said it was too cheeky. People said it was too sitcom-y. All of these criticisms to it. But the one thing they all agreed, Dolly Parton is a movie star. Literally, it was several different people's takes. Most of the reviews that I read, by the way, were from men. Which should be noted. Anyway, moving on. Of course, she also helped with the musical talent by writing the title song and hit 9 to 5, which, by the way, Caroline Irvin, previous host of the show, kills that song. It is her song in karaoke.
I could see that, yeah.
She does a phenomenal job. She dances. She takes on the spirit of Dolly Parton and hits those high notes like nobody's business. Just in case you're wondering.
It's a banger.
It's a banger, and she hits it, y'all. Anyway, originally an idea from Jane Fonda and others from her production company at the time. After learning about a women's organization of the same name, 9 to 5, a quote from her says, "My ideas for films always come from things that I hear and perceive in my daily life. A very old friend of mine had started an organization in Boston called 9 to 5. Which was an association of women office workers. I heard them talking about their work, and they had some great stories. And I've always been attracted to those 1940s films with 3 female stars." And yes, it's absolutely that kind of like hijinks ensues with these 3 women trying to help each other out, but supporting each other. I love it. This movie has been impactful and still remains relevant today. So let's start with the characters. The 4 characters we're going to mainly talk about. Of course, we will throw some other people in there, but just so you know, Judy Burnley, played by Jane Fonda, is the new to work and recently divorced. Yes, she had the stereotypical husband cheating on her with the secretary, of course. Then we have Violet Newstead, played by Lily Tomlin, which, by the way, one of my favorite movies when I first came into the U.S. It was called Big Business, and it's with her, Lily Tomlin, and Bette Midler. I have not watched that since, but Lily Tomlin is a genius, is a comedic genius. But she plays the pro and seasoned worker who is the real brains behind the division, a widowed mother of 4 trying to do her best in a business that doesn't appreciate women at all. She knows this. Then we have Dora Lee Rhodes, the kind secretary who is the constant victim of sexual harassment. Constant. Y'all. Awkwardly so.
Yeah.
Anyway. And then we have Franklin M. Hart, the VP and Jack of the company / of that division specifically. So that's how we're going to, he is the villain, if you needed to know. Like outside of many other villains, he is the main villain. Like, he is the stereotypical jack male white boss, balding male white boss, who has to, like, think he's real big. So anyway, those are our characters. So jumping into the plot, we are first introduced to Judy, who is starting her journey in the working world after being out as a devoted wife until her recent divorce. Violet has been assigned as her trainer, who seems to train most people in the office, but never sees a promotion. We meet Franklin, who is a dick, to put it lightly, and was even trained by Violet herself. As Violet is training Judy, she gives her all the office gossips and the know-hows, and even alludes to the fact that many suspect that the secretary, Dora Lee, is doing the boss and getting extra perks, quote unquote. We are quickly introduced to the fact that white men are the most likely to get promoted and ahead in this business, in any business, even to the point that Frank steals the ideas created by Violet, and he does this often, being praised for his genius and know-how. We also are quickly made aware of Roz, and she is the office tattletale and sycophant to Hart. Even gets a woman fired for discussing the salary. Hello! As we go along, we find out that the company is shitty and often mistreats all of the employees, including the fact Violet has once again been left behind with the current promotion, which went to another white man, who Hart says is better because businesses only want to talk to white men. He says men, but we know what that means. And that he has also been spreading rumors that he was sleeping with Dora Lee, so he's the one telling everyone he's having an affair, who has been actively trying to get away from his advances or sexual harassment and pretty much assault, to the point that she jokes about it. She's like, I'm so used to this, which I think that's more common than not.
Unfortunately so.
Yeah,
I think
anyway.
so.
Mm-hmm. After the three women decided after a hard day's work to go get some drinks, they bond over the fact that they wish they could get rid of Hart with different detailed fantasies, including hog tying, hunting down, or poisoning. All the while, they're having the best time being a little bit naughty. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They smoke weed. As they return to work, a misunderstanding of an accident may have, she may have almost poisoned Hart. It's fine. Where Hart ended up in the hospital, and a whole hijinks ensues. Dead bodies in a trunk, anyone? Police telling someone, they ate poisoning? All those things. Hart finds out the accidental poisoning and how they try to play it off, and he tries to use that against Dora Lee in coercing her into having sex, which ended up having him being hogtied and kidnapped. It's a partially true fantasy. The women soon discover that Hart has been embezzling money from the company and decides to use that information into blackmailing him or getting him fired. Unfortunately, it will take up to a month to get all this information that they need / evidence. So they've come up with a plan. They're going to keep him at his house, where the ladies take over the company and fix the problems Hart was unwilling to do for the company himself. Roz, because she is a know-it-all and was the nosiest of them all, was also sent to go learn French as a part of the plan. She was sent to a German linguistic school for a possible promotion later down the road. All lies. Soon it becomes apparent that nobody actually missed Hart, and the division soon becomes profitable with the implementations of things like job sharing, in-office daycare, rehabilitation programs, and equal pay. What? And though the plan seems to be working, the wife, who has been gone on a solo cruise, who is a victim in this all, but she does keep her eyes closed, willingly believes the ridiculous, but whatever. Suddenly returns home and is able to free Hart, though he doesn't tell them right away. Instead, he goes to fix his little crime. He's hiding everything that he's committed and takes all the women back to the office to gloat and tell them that he was about to send them to jail, call the police. However, before he could do any of that, the chairman of the company arrives to meet with Hart and congratulate him in his success. And it's during this time, because of his great success and all the gloating, Hart finds out he's about to be promoted as head of the Brazilian office and transferred there as a part of the promotion. Yay! Here, the women celebrate their success together because not only did they not go to jail, their works have been noted and seen as a good thing, except for the whole equal pay thing, right?
Yeah, even that was too much.
That's a stretch too far. I'm going to change that back. They are sitting together, drinking their wine, toasting their success. And then we get a little postscript about everything. Turns out Violet ends up being VP. Thank goodness. Judy marries the Xerox representative. There's a whole comedic moment where she's really fighting the paper machine. And Dora Lee becomes a successful country singer. Which I'm like, they didn't have her singing in any of the... they needed to have a moment where she sings in there. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then Hart is kidnapped by what they say is indigenous people and disappears into the Amazons. Happy
Never
ending
to
for
be
all.
seen again.
Never to be seen again. Happy endings for all.
Wow.
So, Anney, first and foremost, because you've never seen this movie, correct?
No, that was my first time.
What was your thoughts?
I really enjoyed it. I thought I knew what it was. Like, I knew that the boss got kidnapped. Like, they kidnapped him. But I thought, I had no idea there was going to be this whole middle section where there's, like, car chases or car escapes and dead bodies. And I kept waiting for whoever the dead body they accidentally took. They thought he had been poisoned.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to see the, like, side movie of what's going on there. And, like, I had no idea there was going to be all of this stuff happening in it. And then the when they smoke weed.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that. So it was fun, and it was pretty wild. Like, a lot of action in it, actually.
Yeah, there is a lot of action. This is that slapstick that happened in the 80s that we came back to, but it was a little different.
Yeah. I was surprised. Like, a lot of it actually surprised me.
Yeah.
Even though I thought I knew what it was. And I did. I mean, it's really sad, but it was kind of shocking at how much I was like, oh, yeah, we're still talking about that today.
These novel ideas that is rarely instituted anywhere. No one talked about the whole, like, giving away of food as an incentive, which I loved, but someone thought was a thing. Yeah, so this whole movie, originally, they had thought that they were going to do it as a drama. And then they changed their mind, and, like, I don't think it's going to... They needed, like, a spoonful of sugar to help it go down, essentially. It's the ideals. Although people really didn't like that. Again, that was part of the criticism. Is like, it was so over the top that it's not believable, it's not worth watching, and it doesn't really give a good turn on society. Weinstein made a comment about how this really impacted women, and we need to pay attention to movies like this, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there was a documentary about Still 9 to 5, which we came back to because we were trying to figure out if there was a sequel or whatnot, and then it turned out that there was a documentary in which it just talked about the fact that nothing has changed.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's... I mean, it is upsetting, but I wonder if that's one of the reasons, like, for me watching it for the first time now, like, I'm just so familiar with that stuff that it was kind of nice for it to not be a drama to me.
Right.
And it was kind of nice. I loved how they had the friendship group had their fights, and they all had, like, moments of where they just seemed to break down.
Right.
But they all kind of stuck together and built each other up. Like, I really appreciated that. It was nice to see them uniting. And honestly, like, I was surprised at how, not graphic, but at how kind of openly they were talking about, like, killing the boss.
Right.
And bonding over that. And I was like...
It was before all the tracking.
Yeah. Well, no, it just felt like I wasn't expecting it. I just wasn't expecting it from a movie from that time.
Right. They were...
But, you know. Yeah.
Ready. They were ready. I think there's so much to be said. And I love that these women were the ones that play these characters because it fit who they are today. Like, they kind of carried that even to today. I know Lily Tomlin, I'm sure they all are, but Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda just did projects together not too long ago. Like, they're still friends. They're still very close. And this was the first movie, I believe, that they were in together. And part of the reason she wanted to do this movie was to work with Lily Tomlin, especially in a comedic setting. Because, again, she's an icon when it comes to that comedy. She kind of comes in that era of Gilda Radner. Like, they were comedians to a different level. It really was the beginning when you saw women making comedy, like sitcoms, and making slapstick and being leads in it. And it was new. newer, especially, and Lily Tomlin was at the front of that. Like I said, her and Bette Midler and Big Business is one of my all-time favorite movies. I wonder how it holds up. It's on Disney right now, not a sponsor. I'm kind of scared, but
it's scary to revisit some of those
right,
things.
right. Because I was trying to find this movie to stream somewhere, and I couldn't. But like, Big Business popped up, and I was like, oh no. Anyway, but it definitely has a lot of like their backbone in it, and you can tell it. You can tell what it is. Immediately after that was Baby Boom came up like as a play after the fact because it's kind of reminiscent of the working woman having the kid and all these things. It was interesting. But it was this era when we were telling these different type of stories from women's perspective. Of course, it's also during this time that the women can have it all.
Yeah.
Should have it all comes up, and it becomes kind of like a...
Because it's, the 80s when women are coming into the workplace.
Yeah. So hold that. Speaking of which, so let's talk about some of the themes. And the first part is that whole women in the workplace conversation. We had the part-time employee or a woman trying to be part-time because she has kids and really trying to change having to work, but being there, not being able to be for her kids and need to be home for her kids. And we also have the main character, Violet, who has 4 kids. One's an adult, but like she's a widower trying to figure herself out, as well as a recently divorced woman, and that's, Jane Fonda's character, Judy, who's having to take care of her, quote unquote, take care of herself, and because her husband left her with nothing, essentially.
Yeah, and I did think it was infuriating, when the promotion was turned down because the boss was like, well, businesses like dealing with men, and he really needed it because he has kids, and she was like, and I don't.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. To see them like having these, it was interesting to have the dynamics of them, because Dolly Parton's character, Dora Lee, too, she has what seems to be a really loving relationship. With
Did it
her
not
husband.
creep you out? It creeped me out a little bit.
It's creepy because it's like, smile for me. It's like,
right.
Yeah.
So there were so many things to that scene that really bothered me, because you kind of see Dora Lee painted as just a doormat. And so her trying to vent to her husband, and her husband's like, don't worry about it. Smile. Let me sex you up. This will make you feel better. And I'm like, well, is that really the solution? Like, is this scene supposed to show that she's happily married and doesn't want anything to do with him and is very satisfied with this man? Or is this just showing that she is, yes, in fact, a doormat?
I think at the time it was supposed to show she was happily married.
Okay.
I think looking back at it, it doesn't feel that way.
Oh, it was so creepy to me. So this is one of those movies I told you at the very beginning. It is somehow relevant but irrelevant at the same time. Like both the most relevant, non-relevant movie. The most relevant that doesn't withstand time type of movie. Like it really, so there's so many cringe things, but on top of that these issues still remain.
Yeah. My vibe, but I mean, she was very happy when he left, but she was more happy that he left. He was out of town, and so she was more happy that she could share her house so they could get high. And
right. There were so many things, but yeah. So it was such a weird moment to me that this scene makes me feel gross. I don't know why, but I don't like this scene. And this is supposed to depict, again, her being a happily married woman, whatnot. I do think it's funny, in every poor Dolly Parton. She can't ever escape it. And she is who she is and proud of herself. But the fact that very first scene when we introduced to Dora Lee, we have Judy just staring at her breasts.
Yeah.
In shock. Just staring. I'm like, poor Dolly.
Yeah.
She can't just be. To be fair, we all know she's got beautiful knockers. So go ahead, lady. is meant to, you do you. But at the same time, let her be. But yeah, that whole balanced life, they're trying to figure it out. We also have Lily Tomlin's character, Violet, kind of bonding with her oldest son, who's trying to be yes, you need to do these things. You need to relax. You need to do for you. He was giving her a lot of good advice. Whether he knows it or not, he was a feminist.
He also gave her the weed.
And gave her the weed. I'm gonna put it in your pocketbook. I got you. I got you. After she fixed the garage door herself, because she don't need no man, just someone to make sure she doesn't fall.
Yeah. That was a good scene. I liked that scene.
I do too, but it does come back to help out when she has to hang up.
Oh.
Dear heart. Just in cases. Just in cases. Of course, another thing that was a very quick slip, but I want to talk about it, was that whole racism in the workplace. You have the one person. No, there's several Black characters. But the first one you're introduced to is the male. I guess a person from the mailroom, because it's not a mailman. There's not a male person. It's just like they go through the office and realizing he has been denied a promotion himself. And he's been working there for so long. And he's like, in his mind, he said, like, I can't even get out of the basement. You know? And I feel like it was a very, like, snip moment that a white woman would still be with no experience.
Yeah.
Will still be chosen over that. Him. And so I was like, I feel like it's like they slipped it in there, but like never really, because like, we do see Black women being a part of the employee in the office, but I feel like that was purposely put in there, and it's good to recognize that because real. Of course, sexism in the workplace, that's obvious, right? Like that's the entirety. Business,
it's like the plot almost,
right? The entirety of the plot. Business is not working with women, like don't want to talk to them. They don't think they're competent to do so. The whole like taking credit for her work, pretending like he doesn't. That whole moment where he looks at the her proposal she sent to him about color coding something, and he's like, I have to look at that because this needs to be fixed, and then immediately turning around and using it to get more credibility to his name.
Yeah,
of course that could be just any underling. Versus, like, we know that's not necessarily just because she's a woman, but, you know, but who's being promoted, who is being seen, who is being noted, like everybody who was ahead were all men of the departments, as we saw.
Yeah. And it did come back to bite him. I mean, that's what got him sent to Brazil, which he didn't want to go. Right. But because he'd been taking credit for all their ideas.
All their work.
Even if he didn't know it at that point. But he couldn't back out because it done so well.
Right.
And he was getting all this praise.
Instead of being like, she should be promoted. She's the one who did this.
Yeah.
Couldn't do that. And then, of course, a line that kind of was a tagline for him, for Hart, the sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot. It just follows him because they repeatedly say that to him because he is.
He is. And I knew it watching it. And I was waiting for it. And I was like, I wonder how, like, overt this is going to be. Pretty overt.
The knocking of things to make Dorley pick it up, the cleavage shot. The buying of the scarf, the having Violet, who was not his secretary, continually doing secretarial things, including going to buy a scarf.
That he lied and said was for his wife.
Right.
It was actually for Dorley.
And they all assume because he spread the rumor, it was one of the perks she was getting for sleeping with him. Of course, sexual harassment, which this one was so intense that I was like, my God. And it, like... We have to have it in. I think I've watched this movie during one of our reproductive rights organization put on the movie, a viewing as like a Q&A fundraiser thing that I actually went with Caroline with. And we had that moment. And I think one of the conversation was, just like you said earlier, these things are so likely or real that if it wasn't put into this extreme level of comedic scenery, nobody could actually watch this. No women could actually watch this. It would
be miserable. It would be like, I know. Yep.
Yeah. And then
I have to deal with it all the time.
Being traumatized. Interestingly, I also was like, when she does her taking it out on him, I'm like, this would never work because they would actually take that as an advance. He would jump on that immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking about Dorley's fantasy, right?
Right.
So in her fantasy, she's like, I'd reverse it essentially and give him a taste of his own medicine. And I mean, it's very striking because you're like, yeah, this feels weird. Like, because she's a woman doing this to a man. Not that doesn't happen, but it felt very like, oh my God.
Right. And it does happen. But in this specific scenario where he is harassing her and trying to coerce her, he wants her to do this.
Right.
These are the things that he wants from her.
Right.
So to me, I was like, this is not this is not what you think this is. Like, it's
Mhm.
not just the power. It is, and it is.
Yeah.
So all these things to me, it was like, okay. But also, like, I have experienced harassment, sexual harassment, in a way that came off as jokes.
Yes.
So this feels kind of like, yeah, like this is the only way we could actually like be funny, but at the same time, that's what they do to hide it. So it kind of is that double standard, like, yeah, we got to be careful on how we deliver
Yeah.
this. Again, they did what they had to do and could do in 1980. So, but like 45 years ago, this was, trying to have men watch it and be like, you know what I mean? This is not you, because you're not this extreme, but this happens in the office. Isn't that awful? Type of conversation and type of like light-handedly, like, women go through
Right.
this.
Right. And I think the issue is a lot of men don't, and not, I don't know, they don't realize that to them it's normal. So it's like, yeah, I don't see what your issue is.
Right. But she was able to say no. It's not like she couldn't say no.
Exactly.
And she handled it. She didn't make it a big deal. She knew he was not completely real.
Yeah. Which I can admit I did appreciate. I liked how she was like, I've been upfront with you, all of this, all of this, all of this. But it was kind of unbelievable because you're like, yeah.
Yeah. This is not what happens. But a happier point of this movie, as you were already referencing, Anney, is that this movie is about women supporting women. One thing that I have seen about Jane Fonda, she loves her girls. She loves her friends, and she like vouches for her friends. I think that she was already kind of marred by a lot of like politicians and I guess Hollywood, especially right-leaning Hollywood at that point, because she had been protesting the Vietnam War. People were pissed, saying that she is anti-American because she did not like the war. She felt like it was political. ... Even the way she speaks about like the rights of people today, she's never changed her stance. I honestly think the whole like weed scene was a big you to the government.
I loved it. So
I've not seen anything. I've not read anything. Maybe I've missed it. So if y'all know an article where she talks about that, I almost like 80, 90, 100% sure that she did this as a you to the government, because it was their war on drugs instead of seeing that their war in general was what they should be concentrating on. So it was interesting to me because she was that person. But like I said, her love for working with Lily Tomlin and making sure that this was in the forefront. Her love for her friend from Boston, like loving what she was doing and wanting it to be bigger and wanting to have the bigger conversation. I don't know if it truly worked. Like, we're talking about it today. And if you weren't a huge fan and did this research, I wouldn't have known that it was an organization until after the fact. You know what I mean? I would have just thought, this is a great movie. Moving on.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting take. I'm trying to remember my family's liking of this movie or not, because my mom is very conservative, stay-at-home mom. I don't know if she actually watched it, but she loves Dolly Parton. My family loves some Dolly Parton. Christmas music is Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. Our only vacation growing up was to Dollywood.
Wow.
So I can't imagine that they didn't know about this, but I'm sure we watched it. I just don't have a big significant remembering like what their response was to this.
I mean, it's going back. I imagine, I have no idea how your family responded to it, but going back to that double-edged sword of making something more palatable so more people will watch it is, I think, probably a lot of conservative people watched it and were sort of like, ha ha ha, that's the way it is, instead of ha ha ha, we should change this. Like, this is bad. You know what I mean?
I'm assuming it's ha ha ha, that's so extreme that's not realistic. That doesn't happen. So, of course, they made him a super villain in order to be palatable instead of having real life commonalities. And he gets punished in the end, and that's how they think it works. Like, oh yeah, but if you truly are deserved to be punished, you will be.
Right.
Which is not what's happening. What happens. But yes, but back to the women supporting women. They definitely do. One right after, like, still a body. All right, we're going to help you out. Let's put the body back. No one knows. No one needs to know. We got a
I
plan.
was not expecting that at all.
That's one of the best. You poisoned him. Okay, let's get you a lawyer. We're gonna get you a lawyer. Calm down.
It's all
Calm
right.
down. I also love the whole shooting. Like Judy has got the gun, which of course Dolly Parton has a gun in her pocket. Which I'm like, this is real illegal. Yeah, even in the 80s. I'm pretty sure.
I would think so,
but maybe not. Who knows? But like her shooting at him, hog tying, and everybody's like, okay, hog tying. This makes sense. We know who to go to when we're in trouble. I love that. They had a plan and had each other's backs.
They did. And like I said, I appreciated that they got angry at each other sometimes.
Right.
But they were still like, no, okay, we can fix that. We can do this.
I will say the entire time, Dora Lee seemed to be the most like common sense, take charge of the people. And I love that when they discover they're going to change out the fender, or they're trying to pull the fender back, and they're going to get the tool. They don't care that there's a body back there. They are shocked that it's not the body they thought it was.
Yes.
But not too shocked, because they're like, Judy, can you come here for a second? That play out was so funny to me. That like relaxed Dora Lee's like, huh? Yeah, this isn't. We
need to change our plan.
Still my favorite.
I also love. Everyone's really judgmental of Dora Lee because they think she's having an affair with the boss, and so they don't sit with her and all this stuff. But I kind of love how Violet was like, whatever. Like, even from the beginning, she's like, live and let live. I don't know. Like,
she actually says, good for you. Do what you need to. Like, she actually is like, if you have to do that, go for it.
Right. But I like how quickly, they really bonded and came together, and it was really fun to see them.
Like, all it takes is some weed, Annie. Little drinks and little weed, apparently, and a plan and a few plans.
Responsible substance use, everyone. But
like we said, by going on another theme, like we didn't really. It's not a theme, but I think it's a fun side note. Again, apparently Reagan's wife watched the movie, and it was during Valentine's Day, I guess. I don't know the release date. It might have been around that time. And apparently Ronald Reagan, liked it, except for the weed part. Like, he made a statement about it, saying something about how it made it more appealing for the young folks. It romanticized it, and they shouldn't have done that. It would have been fine if it would just been alcohol, is what he says. And I'm like, really?
Wow. Had to make a statement.
Like, I think he just made, but like the fact that he liked the movie. And like, I'm like, and his wife really liked the movie. And like, your wife is a Roz of the world, just so we know. She's the Roz if we needed to talk about it. And then, unfortunately, we're kind of going to come back to what's happening today. Again, there are talks about having it be remade. I believe Jennifer Aniston's company is looking into it, about possibly making a remake. It kept saying this year, but I don't know if that's true or if it's just like they're still always talking about it. I think it needs to be an action movie at this point. This needs to be like a no holds barred, like revenge film at this moment. Is what I'm gonna say. So there's an article written, I think it was in 2021, so not too recent, but recent enough, about the movie, titled "Why 9 to 5 Still Resonates Today," and it's by Karen Nussbaum. So, and they say, it took social movements in the 1960s and 70s to restore progress to women who had lost so much ground and leap forward. So the success of 9 to 5 in 1980 captured that momentum and promised a future of positive change. A promise that, as still working 9 to 5 will remind you, still hasn't been fulfilled. And then on top of that, unfortunately, that movement that happened in the 60s, 70s that resulted into the Equal Employment Opportunity Act has been revoked with the Civil Rights Act as of this week in 2025. Today's January 23, 2025. I hope when people listen back to this that we can come back about this being a dark moment and that it has changed. This is my hope. because those types of revoking, like, I cannot believe this is the act he thought would really save everything. The tales from everybody talking about this is discriminatory, that this act was discriminatory. So somehow the people who have the most money, the group of people that has the most likelihood of surviving and being successful and having homes and being able to have this all that we've talked about, are suddenly being discriminated against somehow, who are statistically have more profit. And if you are wondering if just because you're white does not mean this help you, especially for the women. So just, and I know our listeners, they already know. And you're not the people that I'm talking to at all. Any immigrant, not any person of color who really thought this wouldn't happen is happening. It's interesting because these movies were trying to be a cautionary tale and then like kind of like a hopeful future, and then 45 years later, we're worse than they were.
Yep. Yeah. It's true. After
I was finished kind of revamping and rethinking some of these themes, and we didn't change anything except for like, we're going to have to at least talk about where we are today. I really needed a nap.
That's fair. That's fair.
I was like, I just need to close my eyes. When I talk about narcolepsy, I'm like, this is why I think I have narcolepsy, because when I'm stressed like this, my body physically shuts down.
You know, we won't go into this now, but I was thinking about it recently, and I was like, it's so interesting to me. I would be so much more productive if I didn't have all of this bullshit to deal with, and your capitalism would be doing a lot better. But instead, I'm like, oh God, let me just sit down for a minute.
Yeah. There's a lot, especially as we wait to see if people, because we already know ACLU has already gone after the administration for the immigration ban, taking this whole birthright citizenship, which apparently they can't do at this point. It's not legal. It's just fluff.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're not going to try.
No.
Doesn't mean ICE has not already been out there. And we do want to come back and do an episode about what to know about your rights for any immigrants. Technically, I am too. I mean, I am a citizen. However, it is naturalized, so we know how that can go. So the fear is very real. But we will come back, and we do want to talk about your rights and how to go forward in this conversation. Please know we love you. We're thinking about you. But on this Feminist Movie Friday, what I thought would be a conversation about a good old classic with things that we still need to learn, I didn't realize we would come back with, this is no longer relevant, because it is relevant, but less like, again, that fact that we're talking about it in a way that we have less rights than the people in this movie is phenomenal. So this is a fantasy. This movie is a fantasy.
Yeah. It was a fun one, though.
Yes. So if you would like to see a fantasy feel-good movie for the moment with a lot of 80s sitcomic.
Oh, the technology. We didn't even talk about that.
We didn't even talk about the tap, tap, tap.
Oh,
the
my gosh.
Tap. And then the giant
phone headset
printer.
The printer. Yeah.
The giant. And we didn't even talk about the woman who was an alcoholic at the office. I feel you.
I loved her. I love that she was like, atta girl.
Atta girl. Every single one of them. Atta girl. I quit. I'm done for the day. I'm going to get a drink. Atta girl. She said medicinal purposes.
I do love how they were all like, I'm going to get a drink in the middle of the day. And everyone was like, okay.
Enjoy. It kind of looks like, like pre-people having breakdowns at offices.
Yeah.
Like understanding, do not push her.
Yes.
Let her go.
We don't need this.
You don't want this heat. Let them go. But with all of that, we love you. Take the time to enjoy some of these fantasies. It's okay. You can't be in a constant state of panic. It's not good for you.
No. No, it's not. And we hope that these episodes, some of them, of course, we will be tackling current issues, but the ones where we get to have a bit more fun, we hope that there are bright spots for you and that you can find a moment in them to maybe take a breath, enjoy. As always, you can contact us in many ways. You can find us at hello@stuffwe'll-never-told-you.com or stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can also find us on Blue Sky at Mom Stuff Podcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff We'll Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.